Time FC, live on the scene, sponsored by Ham's Homemade Cookies and Ball U Academy. Without further ado, let me get you to the host of the show, Big Shot Ron. Take it away.
What's going on? Tuesday night, we're back. Stoppage Time FC. This is Ron. I got Zach. I got Joe. Remember, we are everywhere. This is being simulcast on Twitter, SCEN_THE. Also, Stoppage Time FC has its own Twitter page. Follow that as well. We are on the Scene Facebook fan page. That's all capital letters, SCEN. We are now on Twitch to our Twitch gang, THE_SCEN. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, The Scene, capital THE, capital SCEN. Lot since we've last been here, including these 4 streaming channels. We're glad you're here with us. Zach, Joe in the building. We're going to talk about the return of the Champions League, the most prestigious prize in the sport. And then we're going to go into Know Your Role. How do seasons in football actually work? It's not as straightforward as here in America. So we want to give you the lowdown on how all this works. But Zach, let's start with you. Chelsea matching up with Atletico Madrid in the next round. We're going to talk about sort of all these matchups rapid fire, but I want to start there. How are you feeling? New manager, definite some style changes with the club. How you feel about it going into the Atletico matchup?
To be honest, I'm a little apprehensive. It's gonna be an interesting match. Thankfully, it's 2 legs. Hopefully, it gets moved away from Spain to that, because that'll help Chelsea out. But with Tuchel and him being playing more of a 5 at the back, 2 wing backs, 2 midfielders and 3 attackers, it's been an interesting change. You have a team that, kind of a la Maurizio Sarri and Antonio Conte, pass the ball a lot. They're averaging over 800 completed passes in a match, which is a lot compared to what you see from Premier League teams. They're averaging about 70% possession. The problem is Atletico does the same thing. They are very well versed in possession and passing the ball. So thankfully, I have a week off. I don't have to worry about that matchup till 2 weeks from now. But I'm hoping for the best, and hopefully we can snag an away goal.
It has been moved officially away from Atletico. That came out earlier today because they have a travel ban on UK. So you will not have to go to Madrid to play that match.
Common theme you're going to see, fans. None of the UK teams are playing in the country of their opponent, because the rest of Europe is like, UK, you have cooties and germs, and we don't want it.
That's exactly what it is.
Wash your hands, UK. Wear your mask. Joe, let's talk about Man City. Now in the Premier League, 5 points clear, looking really good.
With a game in hand, with the extra game to play.
Looking in the driver's seat there. But this is the competition. This has been the holy grail. This is the one that Man City fans have wanted for years. They've conquered everything at the domestic level over the last 8 to 10 years. So now this is about the big one. How you feel about your matchup in the Champions League this round?
The draw was definitely kind to us. We're matched up with Borussia Mönchengladbach, which is a team in Germany. They're okay. They're pretty good. But the way my squad is playing right now, I'm supremely confident that at least for this knockout round that we will be progressing. It's 2 legs, 1 there, 1 here. And we're on a run of form where we've won 14 straight games in all competitions and not really giving up goals. And we're getting healthy at the right time. My guy, the back of my jersey I'm wearing right now, is back in training. He is over his COVID symptoms. Mr. Aguero is going to be back in time for these matchups, hopefully, at least to come on as a super sub. Zach and I have talked about that might be his role going forward, where he's the guy you bring in to get a goal in the last 30 minutes. That's quite a player to have at your disposal to come in and when you might need a goal at the end. So I'm supremely confident right now that we're going to take care of Borussia Mönchengladbach. So I'm feeling good.
Key phrase for the fans, 14 wins in all competitions. We're going to talk about this in the Know Your Role segment, all competitions, because there are many in the course of a season. But fellas, let's hit some of the other matchups. Next week, Joe, just give us the quick rundown on who's matching up next week, because it's a little bit staggered. Not every matchup is next week. Who plays next week?
Next week on Tuesday, we have Leipzig against Liverpool. That game will not be played in Germany because of the travel restrictions. Leipzig is currently second in the Bundesliga in their league, so they're playing well. They've got 3 wins in their last 5 matches with a loss and a draw, so they're in okay form right now domestically. Liverpool is 4th currently in the Premier League. They have not had a good run of form lately. They've lost 2 straight in England, and 3 of their last 5 they've lost with 2 wins in there. So that is one of our first matchups on Tuesday. Second one is the big one in my eyes is Barcelona against PSG. Barca is in a great run of form. They've won 5 straight. They are still 3rd in La Liga though, so they're 3rd in their league. And PSG is also in pretty good form. They've lost 1 of their last 5, so they're doing a nice job in their domestic league per usual. They are only 3rd in the Liga 1 though, so they are not in their usual spot. We were used to seeing them in first, kind of like we see Bayern in Germany. But right now, there's 2 other teams that have them. It's only a 3-point gap between first and third though, so they're right there. So that's Tuesday's rundown. Wednesday, the day after that, next matchups, we have Porto against Juventus. Porto is 2nd in their league in Portugal. They've got 2 wins and 3 draws in their last 5, so they haven't lost, but they're also not winning a whole lot right now. And Juventus is 3rd in Serie A right now with 4 wins out of their last 5 and a loss. And then our last matchup could be one of the more hotly contested matchups that we have next week. Sevilla against Dortmund. It looks like that one is going to take place in Spain. Have not seen any updates on that one. Sevilla is 4th in La Liga. Dortmund is sitting at 6th in the Bundesliga right now, though, so they're not in the best run of form. Dortmund has lost 3 of their last 5 with a win and a draw mixed in there, and Sevilla has won 4 straight. Have won 4 of their last 5. So we got the positions in the table in their domestic leagues and their current run of form right now. So that's the rundown for next week on Tuesday and Wednesday.
So we talked about a little bit this off show about, for our newly initiated. For the newly initiated out there, we're like, what is going, we suggested Liverpool, Man City last Sunday. Zach, I'm going to go back to you. Of these 4 matchups, if you were talking to our guys who were like, hey, I've never really watched the sport, which one of these 4 matches will be the one you say, hey, this is the one I probably should, it's kind of dipping my toe in the water. Which one of these 4 would you pick?
If you want to see the most talented players out of all these matchups, I would watch PSG versus Barca. I think that's going to be your largest amount of top talent. If it's me personally, I really want to see the Sevilla versus Dortmund matchup. I think that's going to be the better of the 2 matchups. Not from competitive, not saying that PSG and Barca won't be a competitive match. It's just me as a football fan, I think that the best football is going to come from that matchup in Sevilla.
I actually agree with you on both of those. I think Barcelona PSG is the star power. That is the headlines. The surrounding drama around Barcelona as a club. Is Messi potentially playing against his next club, potentially? So I think from a star power point of view, that's probably the one you would watch. But I also agree with you. Sevilla Dortmund. I know our man Germaldo behind the scenes is really big on tactics and strategy and how does it. If you want to see it from that point of view, Sevilla and Dortmund is probably the most interesting of those 4. Just the style of play is very contrasting. Also, if you were a super novice, a contrast in colors. Dortmund has the bright yellow and gold, the bright gold and black jerseys. Sevilla has the very traditional looking red stripes. So from a contrast of styles, contrast of colors, that's a good one. Joe, what about you? For the newly initiated, would you pick the same ones me and Zach picked, and which one do you think is the actual better football matchup?
I think the Barca and PSG is definitely a good one to dip your toes in, because there's going to be guys that you recognize on the pitch. You're going to see names and hear names that you've heard before. So that's a good starting point, I think, for guys who might not have watched a whole lot of soccer before. So I definitely agree with you guys on that one. I think I'm really curious to see the Liverpool and Leipzig, and if Liverpool is going to continue their current run of poor form, and if they're going to turn this around and get it right. And with Leipzig, they proved themselves last year in the Champions League that they're not just a rollover opponent. And I think their style of play is going to match up well, and I think it's going to be a nice attacking style of football from both sides. So I think that one is going to be a fun one to watch. And as a Man City fan, I like seeing Liverpool struggle. So my eyes are definitely going to be turned that way a little bit, just to see if they're going to turn it around or not. I guess the least amount of coverage probably is going to be on that Porto and Juve matchup, because I think Juventus is clearly the better team, and since Porto is not in terrible form, but they're not winning right now, so I would expect Juventus to take care of business there. The other three I think are going to be pretty competitive games, and all should be good watches. I think it's interesting that none of the teams on the first day are in pole position in their domestic leagues. I think that's a pretty cool thing that I noticed while I was taking notes of it, that the Leipzig are the highest and Porto are both second in their league, but there's no first place team playing on these first 2 days of Champions League football. And I would just like to say something to Tyrell, because he has a comment in the comments here that Zach is greater than Joe Mayfor, and I just don't agree with that.
Tyrell constantly stirring the drink.
Just stirring the pot at every opportunity.
At every opportunity.
And that's supposed to be my little brother right there, man. That's just not cool.
Real recognize real.
Liverpool, I think, Joe and Zach definitely chime in. I think that I can see them losing that time.
Me too.
I think their problems, the injuries, and everything that's happened to them here, sometimes it's just not your year. And I think this is just not their year. And Leipzig play a very intense style. They press you on the ball. And I could very well see Liverpool having real struggles getting through that. I really think that wouldn't surprise me. I'll say that. If you told me that, Leipzig, quote unquote, upset Liverpool, that wouldn't shock me.
I really think that Liverpool they have to get an away goal, because if they don't get an away goal, they're done.
Yeah. Their attack, and we saw it against Man City, that's just kind of going completely flat. Like, they just don't.
There's not a lot of creativity. Yeah, creativity is lacking. And that's not, you wouldn't think a lineup with Salah, Mane, and Firmino would be struggling to score goals.
And for me, though, I don't even know if it's the creativity that's lacking with the front three. It's almost like the midfield has lost all of its ability to distribute the ball effectively. And it's not like they've changed. They still have Wijnaldum. They still have Hendo. They added Thiago, but Thiago is supposed to be an upgrade. He is a assist maestro. He's a lot like Cesc Fabregas in that, he's not going to be your premier goal scorer, but he knows how to put the ball where he needs to facilitate for his attackers. And, it's crazy because that midfield has just lost all of its identity. And I don't know if it's because they're being forced back because their defense is in shambles and they have Preston Davies, who is going to be, their premier center back, who really has no experience at this level. And if I don't know if that's really the reason why, or if they've just lost their mojo, quote unquote.
I think everything that you're saying, Zach, it's everything rolled into one. It's the compounding of the injuries. It's a team that has played, and we talked about this back in September. They played at such a high level for 2 years. Like, you talking about a team that played at, a 98-point pace, 99 points, Champions League. Like, you just can't play at that level forever. Like, I think it's just the law of averages says it's not going. You can't play at that pace for 3 years. And I think this year, the football guys just kind of caught up with them and said, "You guys had it great for 2 years, so now we're just going to take all of this away from you." And I think it just all happened at one time.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's not necessarily physical or lack of desire, but it might just be between their ears right now, and it's gotten into their heads. And it's hard, like you said, to maintain that level of intensity that it takes to compete in the Premier League and in the Champions League for that period of time. It's hard to maintain that level of intensity. You only got so much you can give. And then at some point it was going to catch up to them. And that's kind of what we all mentioned at the beginning of the season, was that we kind of expected this to happen because of how well that they played for so long.
Let me ask this, and I was going to wait for Joe and I to cover this on Blue versus Blue, which is coming to you soon. So stay tuned for that. That's something on the side here from Stoppage Time. But is Liverpool done? Like, is the dynasty, the quote unquote dynasty, already crumbling, and the is the fairy tale already over? We all know it's hard to recover in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think I want to see them next season with the healthy squad, but they need tweaks to that team. Like, they're not in a position where they can say, okay, we'll just run it back with our guys. Like, they have to find center back help over the summer. Multiple center backs. They have to find, I know Jota currently is hurt, but they need a striker. Like, obviously he wouldn't go there. They need an Aguero-type player. They need somebody who's different from Firmino. Firmino is your hold-up play, distributes the ball well as a forward.
False nine.
They need a scorer. They need somebody who just gets in the box and you just give him the ball and he scores. So they need significant tweaks to that team. So I'm not going to call them done. But they can't. But they're not in a position to run it back next year with the same team. They have to make real changes.
But other than depth, where do you add? I mean, are you really gonna put Firmino on the bench? You're not gonna supplant Wijnaldum. You're not gonna supplant Hendo. VVD and Gomez or whoever they put next to him, other than maybe a center back. Your left and right back aren't going anywhere.
Well, Gigi is on his last leg there, is he not? His contract is up, right?
His contract is up. But I think if you're a team, if you look at this season, Klopp, you have to recognize what managers like Jose have done. Managers like Pep have done. Yes, we've won titles, but we're constantly changing this squad over. And I think if you're Klopp, you have to make an honest assessment and say, yes, Bobby Firmino needs real competition at his spot.
I really think, and this is just me, I think they would almost be better served to move Firmino down into like a cam role. If Wijnaldum is, done, move Firmino down, get a striker or an attacking forward that can do that, can get into the box, because Firmino actually he excels in that hold-up play. Get the ball at his feet, and you have an asset there. So I think they might, if I'm Klopp, that may be somewhere where I would look at changing.
And before we get into our Know Your Role segment, let me say this about Paris Saint-Germain. you cannot. I mean, it's being captain obvious. You have to win this time.
No question.
There's not even, if there is a team under, I don't say the quote, I'm going to be the hot take. Who's under the most pressure? But if I had to pick a team that was under the most pressure to win their time, Paris Saint-Germain have to win this time. Have to.
They haven't exactly hit the ground running with Pochettino either.
They have not, which is why I worry.
They're running through a Barca team who's finally hitting their form, which is not good news for PSG. I think PSG is the better team, but I don't know if form is going to benefit them. Now, I'm not one to count out, Neymar and Mbappe. I mean, that'd be silly. I think they're probably the better attacking team, but I think as a whole, I think Barca might be in better form.
And PSG is really trying to lure Messi to Paris. So if they want any shot at bringing him there, if they lose to him, that's not a good look. And they already kind of have a strike against them, for what I've been reading, is that Messi is not one who wants to be wooed in the public eye, like PSG has been very vocal about from their players, specifically saying, we want you to come here. We want to play with him. He'd be perfect. He likes the low-key approach, from what I've been reading from insiders. So that's definitely an important piece for PSG if they want to lure Messi there. You can't lose to him in the Champions League and then turn around and say, hey, you should come here because we give you a great chance to compete there. Like that's not a good look. Ty asked a question in the comments, which is a good one. He said, what position can you afford to interchange a lot? Kind of like how running backs in football and American football seem to be kind of interchangeable and rotating them in and out. Kind of what position do you guys think is interchangeable where you can kind of slot Firmino into a midfielder role, that kind of deal?
Ronnie, go ahead.
I think in this era of football, just because we can go back to the Know Your Role segment, Know Your Role show, and talk about how the game is played. I think in this era of football, I think wings and fullbacks are so important now because attack is just generated so much of the game is generated down the perimeter, is on the perimeter. Roles like the number 10, the playmaker don't really exist. You don't really have pure strikers unless you got somebody like a Holland or a Lewandowski who are unbelievable. I think wings and fullbacks are the hardest things to replace in modern football because just so much attack is generated down the perimeter.
I would probably say I know for wingers, I think that they're not really interchangeable. I think your fullbacks, your left back, right back are a little bit more interchangeable. If you have a like for like option, but for me, it's the 8, the number 8 role. He's not your holding midfielder. He's not your attacking midfielder. He's your box to box kind of midfielder who is key. You need him. You need a good number 8, but you can do with a little bit of rotation there and be just fine.
And I'm going to answer it just a little bit different, where I'm kind of going along the Zach route, where we're moving a player from one position to another. I would say lately we've seen Liverpool use this tactic and Man City, where they've put their kind of their holding defensive midfielder into a center back position. I'm reading the question just a little bit differently, I guess. But if you were to like switch a guy around on your squad, you could easily slot in your defensive midfielder into a center back role if you have that need because you're lacking options there. That might be your best option because City did that last year with Fernandinho, and currently Liverpool have been playing both of their quote unquote holding midfielders at center back for a while. So hopefully that answers your question, Ty. We all kind of answered it a little bit differently, so I think we covered it for you, bud.
All right, so now know your role. we always we try to drop in some educational pieces. So this is one that I think is going to be interesting for our people because this just shows you how things work very differently in this sport. So this is literally how seasons are structured. And I'll start with Zach. Zach, explain to the people, first of all, how many different seasons you actually play within one season.
And the crazy thing is like it depends on the league you're in. And like we look at England because that's primarily what we cover. I'm thinking off the top of my head, but I know you have the Premier League, you have the FA Cup, you have the EFL Cup, and you have the Carabao Cup, which is 3 cup series, your regular season. Not to mention if you're in the Champions League or the Europa League. So at minimum, you're in 5 competitions to start. And that's for your really, your top 5 teams in the league are in 5 competitions to start. Everybody else is in 4 to start. And, they call it, fixture madness. So fixtures are basically your games. That's just what they call them overseas. They have a hard time scheduling all these cup games, all these regular season games, and all these, Champions League and competition games because it's so congested. You look at teams that end up playing Tuesday for Champions League, Thursday for, a cup game, and then either Saturday or Sunday for your regular season. That's tough. That's tough on your most essential players. And that's why injuries are so prevalent. And just to go back to Liverpool, to have a 2-year stretch where they basically went without major injury was pretty unheard of.
Right.
It's tough.
So for our people, so the main competition is your league. And in the league, it's I guess we need to call it round robin. It's a home and home schedule. So we'll take the Premier League, which we're most familiar with. There's 20 teams in the league. You play each team home and away, and it's very much like hockey. You get 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, no points if you lose. The most points at the end of the season is your league champion. There are no playoffs.
Playoffs?
Yeah, Jim Moore style playoffs. There are no playoffs. The most points at the end of the season is your champion. So when you hear us talk about on shows, City has a 5-point gap, or a team is up 8 points. That's how the league, because that's how league champions are decided. And what happens is, as you get later in the season, sometimes there's just not enough games for you to catch up to somebody. So that is how champions are decided. No playoffs. There's no best of 7. No wild card. There's none of that. The regular season decides the title.
That means pretty much every regular season game and point that you can get is very, very important. And it's not just about the champ winning the league. They have something called relegation, which is super important.
That concept, that's
super duper important. Think there are at least 4 different leagues in England, levels of competition. Think of it like baseball, where you have the major league team and you have all the minors, but all of those minor league teams are their own individual franchise and they're not affiliated with a baseball team. So what happens is in the Premier League, the bottom 3 teams, the teams that finish with the least amount of points, they get what they call relegated. That means you get sent to the league that is below you, and you are no longer in the Premier League. And the 3 teams that finish in the top 3 positions in that league below will be promoted up into the Premier League. And what comes with that is a massive amount of money. So being in the Premier League, you get shares of the TV contracts. So staying in the Premier League is huge, and getting relegated out of the Premier League when you're in the bottom 3 can have a gigantic impact on the direction of a team and a club. On Netflix, we and Zach are going to cover this on our Blue vs. Blue, another shameless plug for our show there. We're going to recommend some shows documentaries for you guys to watch. One of them is on Netflix. It's called Sunderland Till I Die. And that is a well-known club in England, and it's a huge club. They have a 40,000 seat stadium, but they're currently in the third tier of English football now. And they were just relegated a couple of years ago where they didn't finish in the top spots. And they were not able to recover from that. And now a huge club that has a massive following and a huge stadium is playing in third tier English football, which is a lot of pretty much like the minor leagues of soccer over there. So
it would be like, you try to compare things to Mary. It would be like the Detroit Pistons getting sent to the G League.
Yep. For basketball terms, yep.
I was gonna say it's like sending the Jets to the CFL.
That too.
To the CFL. Or I'm not sure. I think the Kansas City Royals are one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. Kansas City Royals get sent to AAA, and the Dodgers Albuquerque team gets promoted to the big leagues. And as Joe talked about, it's massive financial implications. Like it's $100 million essentially. There's a difference between getting relegated and promoted.
Completely changes the course of your franchise. Even if you just make it into the Premier League 1 year, it can set you up for a bit, and hopefully you stay there. But that's why each game, each point, every big decision that happens by a referee, whether he puts up a card or not, or awards a penalty, can be that important. And why you see some of us when we're watching these games get so distraught or upset or frustrated with a call, because it could mean the difference between winning the league, finishing 12th, or finishing just below a team and being relegated out of the Premier League and not being in that top flight. So it's huge. Every game, every point has big impacts.
And while you
go ahead, Joe. What is that?
And I was saying, while your top six teams, the Cities, the Uniteds, the Liverpools, the Arsenals, the Chelseas, don't really worry about getting relegated, they do have to worry about making European competitions. They have to worry about making the Champions League and the Europa League, because the money that comes from those competitions, it's what keeps them at those top six levels, those top six spots. So while, the mid to lower tier teams worry about fighting for relegation to keep that TV money from the Premier League, such is the same for the top six clubs fighting for that, Champions League money. And for like teams like West Ham and Everton right now, who are in prime position to secure some of that, either Champions League money or Europa League money, it's literally franchise altering.
It is, and it's relegation battles. Like the last 2-3 weeks of the season, if the league title is already decided, which sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes it is, the relegation promotion battle is sometimes as interesting as you will see.
Mm-hmm.
And you could probably look these up on YouTube. A team that survived relegation, last day of the season, the fans rushed the field because we survived another year.
And they finished 17th in the table.
Yeah, they finished 17th, losing.
Yep.
But we survived.
But they stayed in the Premier League.
3 wins.
Yeah. That kind of deal.
We only won 6 matches out of 38. It was the biggest 6 matches of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And as Zach talked about the domestic cups. So right now you have the FA Cup. So the FA Cup, again, try to be Americans and use sports equivalent. It's the equivalent of taking the entire NBA, the entire G League, and put them into one big tournament.
And seeing who comes out on top.
And seeing who comes out on top. So the Chicago Bulls can play the G League, the Santa Cruz Warriors. Rio Grande Valley can play Miami Heat. And it's a big tournament. This is separate from your league. And that's more of a playoff style format.
Yeah, and each domestic league usually has at least one what they call a cup. So you have a league and then you have a cup. Pretty much are the two things going on there. And most of the big countries that have a big leagues will have a domestic tournament in there too. And then that's just club soccer. You also have international football, which brings up more breaks in the schedule where they take what we've talked about before, where we've talked about an international break. It's usually a 2-week break from all domestic and European club soccer, and they let all of these players go back to their home countries and train, and usually play a couple of either friendlies where they just it's kind of like an exhibition game against another country, or if there's qualifiers for the World Cup or for the European Championships. But there's also European or international football where they take 2-week breaks from all of those competitions, so the countries can have their players back, and the players who are playing on the big leagues can take a break from that and go represent their country. So there's also 2-week international breaks that are built into the schedule as well, on top of all those other things that Zach had mentioned. So that's where that's why it's so hard to schedule some of those games, is because they also have to work in the international competitions too.
So if we talk about there's an international break for your best of the best, there really isn't a break, because you're going to play for France or Spain or whatever your country is. So it's a sport that really has, and I think Zach and Joe can both say it has probably the shortest off season of any sport. Like the season in a typical year. Obviously, pandemics kind of changed it. The years, I think we'll talk about this year. I think this year the season has to end by like the beginning of June, no matter what happens, because the European Championships get played this summer, and then the European Championships run from like the middle of June to like the middle of July, and pretty much training camp or exhibitions for clubs start like 2 weeks later, and then the season will start back in August. Like this, it truly is it's an almost 12-month calendar.
Don't forget the Olympics. If the Olympics happen,
if the Olympics happen this year, that's another thing too. So
yeah, the Premier League is
the
Premier League is scheduled to be done May 23rd. So end of May is the current, without any other rescheduling happening. They're scheduled to be done end of May.
So to our fans, it's seasons within seasons. There's league, there's Europe, there's cups, there's international. So it's a grind for sure. Fellas, before we get out of here, just talking about the Champions League. I know this is real off the cuff. A favorite, this is probably easy for Zach, but I'll ask it anyway. A favorite Champions League moment. Just something, a favorite Champions League moment. Zach, this is 80-mile-an-hour pitch right down the middle of the plate. Zach, what's your favorite Champions League moment?
Check out our first episode of Blue versus Blue, and you'll find out.
Ooh,
teaser. I like the teaser right there.
I like it. Joe, favorite or most memorable Champions League moment?
Memorable. I wouldn't say favorite, but most memorable for me. I'm not sure if we talked about this on live or not yet, but it was when we matched up against Tottenham. Man City played Tottenham, and it was very hotly contested, and Raheem Sterling scored. I'll do air quotes on that one. A late game winner, which we thought was going to put us through against Tottenham into the next round, and we needed that goal to win. That was like game-winning goal towards the end of the a la Aguero at the end of the game. But VAR, which is the replay in soccer, which is what they call it, determined that goal was disallowed and that Sterling was offside, which meant that we were no longer going through the Champions League against Tottenham, and then they ended up going to play Liverpool in the final. So not a happy memory by any stretch of the imagination, because it was oh my gosh, Raheem Sterling scored. I'm running around my basement screaming my head off, and my girls are wondering what's going on, to VAR comes up on the box, it's being checked, so my heart's racing a mile a minute. And as a City fan, we don't have a lot of luck when it comes to VAR. Typically, those decisions don't go our way. So I started getting real worked up, and then it came back that it was offside, and that was not enough time to muster another chance, and we were out. And y'all already know how I feel about the Champions League. It's not my favorite competition because they seem to have it out for my guys. So that's my memorable moment. What about you, Ronnie?
They pulled a Lee Corso, not so fast.
Not so fast, my friend.
Not so fast.
Not so
But
fast.
Joe, you did say, and I want to make sure we said this in the earlier show. I just want to make sure this is on the record.
Live and on record.
Live and on record for the world to see. If City win the Champions League, we get the song live.
Joe will sing the Champions League anthem live on all these awesome streaming platforms that the scene now has for all my people to see.
Chelsea gets knocked out. I'm all for City winning this. I'm not gonna lie.
For that reason only, right?
For that reason only. That's the only reason I'm way out the Champions League. I'm struggling with Europa. So I'm all here for Joe singing live.
How about we double down here too?
Do what now?
Yeah, how about we double down, and if they win, you shave your beard too.
Do you understand how long it took me to grow this beard? I'm not one of those guys that can shave it and it grows back within like 2 weeks. That would take me a long time, so that's not getting shaved because I'm not going back to babyface Joe.
I mean, I guess you really don't want City to win. Then
I guess not. I guess not. You're right.
It's not committed. It's not committed. My most, obviously, we getting to the final in 2006 was great, although we didn't win it. But I'll be the comeback at the Camp Nou when Barcelona walked down a 4-goal deficit to PSG. Actually, it might have been 5. Somebody can look it up. Was probably the most memorable of recent memories I can really think of. That was unbelievably dramatic.
Pretty unreal.
Pretty unreal. So, with that being said, we're going to get out of here. Remember, the Blue versus Blue podcast coming soon. So, notifications on, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you are following us across all socials, the Twitch, _SCN, Twitter, scene_the. Remember, there's no E on the scene because we set trends. And Facebook fan page, scene, no E, capital SCEN, the.scene on Instagram. Stoppage Time FC is the Facebook group, and they got their own Twitter. When we put this up, all the links will be there. Ron, Joe, Zach, this is Stoppage Time